Joining me now is Congressman French Hill, who represents the 2nd District of Arkansas. We're keeping a safe enough distance between us here. Thank you for being here.
CDC compliant.
I think we're pretty close to that. Summarize for me, Congressman, what has Congress done so far to address the COVID-19 crisis?
Right. Well, first, $8 billion in appropriations, which goes to the public health crisis. That gets monies to the state. About $6.2 million of that went to the Department of Health here. Money for research, money for USAID to help Americans abroad. It was a big package across the board for public health. Then the House passed a measure that's geared at helping families, make sure they have access to unemployment insurance, make sure our kids have access to food through the school system because they're so dependent on the meal program, make sure that there's family and medical leave for people in quarantine or people watching children who've now been let out of school, and a ability for the government to help businesses pay for that. So that's what the Senate's passed. So family security, food security, some leave security, plus the public health money, and we increased temporarily the match for Medicare and Medicaid so that those funds can come to the states.
It sounds like you're not done yet, though, from everything that I read. So
Correct.
Tell me, what can we expect Congress to do either next week or in the pretty short-term near future?
And my biggest concern now for part 3 or phase 3 is that it be fast. As we tape this, I wish we were voting on it today. And that's direct assistance to critical industries, critical infrastructure in food and airlines, ways to get funding to our small businesses so that they can keep their employees. You know, this is not an economic crisis, it's a public health crisis that's turned into a short-term economic crisis. So trying to get people money through the Small Business Administration, through their bank, through their insurance carrier, these are ways that we've got to help our businesses.
You say short-term, how short-term is it? Because when I hear some of the conversations happen at the national level, they're saying July or August.
Right.
A lot of this, I can tell you, I've talked to a lot of small business owners in Arkansas that aren't going to make it to the end of April,
right,
under the conditions that are starting to bear fruit. So what is your definition of short term?
Right, and that's exactly why I've been so concerned about getting the Senate to move quickly on this funding, is that timing. Most small businesses don't have excess cash and they need to get it to their employees. Well, that's up to the medical experts. You know, I think when we look back in 3 weeks, we'll be able to see the next 3 months a lot more clearly than we can now.
A lot of economists are predicting a pretty severe economic downturn as a result of this. Negative GDP, double-digit unemployment, if this is not successful in the
right.
terms of how we're trying to address this. How much and exactly what can Congress do? I mean, there's a limitation on what you can do to help private enterprise. What do you think Congress, how far can Congress go?
I think Congress can provide federal guarantees for small business programs and waive a lot of regulatory red tape so that banks can make loans to small businesses quickly to cover this 90 days of cash flow where our revenue's gone to zero for so many businesses. And then as the public health crisis subsides or moves to another level, people can adjust accordingly. Maybe some revenue will come back over the next couple of months. That's what we all hope. But again, that's going to be governed by the medical results on the ground.
Does it bother you that we did not get a quicker, earlier start on this? We knew back in January that this was coming to our shores, probably even before then. The federal government has been criticized for being slow to respond to this pandemic. Is that justifiable criticism?
Well, we were told the genetic marker on this disease by the Chinese on January 10th, probably a month after they could have provided that information to the World Health Organization in the United States. And President Trump declared his travel embargo back from China on January 27th. So that's pretty quick to recognize that the pandemic was starting in southern China and expanding. So that was the first step. As it relates to stockpiles and things of that nature, I think the government had a plan for that through FEMA, through NIH, through the CDC, but this is overwhelming to them on what they constructed that stockpile for. So I think we'll learn from this experience to be even more prepared than we were this time. But I don't want to argue that the United States was unprepared. It's the scope of this is unprecedented.
Yeah, but at the same time that you're saying that the federal government could have been taking maybe some quicker action, the president was calling this a hoax. I mean, publicly in rallies at the podium of the White House, it's not a hoax.
No, I think he was describing his opposition's response to what he was doing, criticizing him, and he was saying that was a hoax, meaning that his efforts to fight back were insufficient. And so I don't believe he called the disease itself a hoax. I don't believe that's accurate. And I do hope that we all will come together as Americans, put our flags out, and be united in following the CDC's guidelines and the leadership of our governor here and our health professionals at fighting back against this disease and not politicize it.
So what will you do as a member of Congress to guard against some sort of overwhelming pandemic event like this again? There's lessons that will be learned. It's probably too early to sort through all of that, but at the same time, those conversations have to be going on in the halls of Congress. We could have, should have been better prepared for something of this magnitude. What do you think you will? What do you think you will do personally on that front? Well,
I think we'll look at after-action reports, both from the CDC, from our departments of health around the United States, from our academic medical centers, from the U.S. military. Compare that with also recommendations made by our friends in other countries, and make sure that we're prepared for this scale. I'm concerned about the pandemic risk, but I'm also concerned in the same way about a cyber attack. These are things that we're not used to in our existence as the largest developed economy, and I think we need to get used to a new world because we're so interconnected.
Congressman French Hill, thank you.
Thanks, Roby. Appreciate you.
All right, we'll be back with more right after this.
When homemade is too good to keep at home. Helping Arkansas business do business. Making better happen with First Security.
You'll find us at the end of a lot of long country roads, covering over 60% of the great state of Arkansas. Our 17 electric distribution cooperatives are working day and night to provide reliable, affordable power to over 500,000 homes, farms, and businesses, just like yours. The Electric Cooperatives of Arkansas, your local energy partners.